Hi there. So today I would like to speak about using poetry to learn English. So in some of my classes, I use poetry to teach English to international students. And here are the reasons why I do that. So reason number one is that poetry introduces the idea of storytelling into the class. Okay, so if we're reading a poem in the class together, it's like we're reading a mini story. And that story will then help us to have a conversation and interesting things to talk about. And the story will then inspire us to think about our own stories and areas where we can relate to the poem or moments in our life that we had that are similar to the story that's in the poem. So for example, there is one very famous poem by an Irish poet where he writes about a very simple story about peeling potatoes with his mother. And even though that might not sound very interesting, it's a very beautifully written poem. And in my poetry classes, that has allowed for us to speak about similar memories that we have with our grandparents or our parents or our siblings, and using a range of vocabulary linked to home life and hometown and memory and family and friends. So the idea of telling stories is very important in poetry reading and writing. And actually, storytelling is something very, very ancient to humans. It's something that's been with us for a long time. And even if we read the newspaper or watch movies or talk to our friends, it's all about story. So looking at poetry together in English class to learn English is a really, really nice way to practice your conversational skills. Okay. Reason number two is language accuracy. Okay, language accuracy. So what does that mean? So language accuracy is choosing the right word to convey exactly, or to try to convey exactly what it is that you want to say. Okay, so for example, if I describe a holiday that I went on, I could say it was a really nice holiday and I had a really nice time. So I've used the word nice twice. Whereas when we write and when we read poetry, we think about language in a slightly different way. And we try to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more specific with verbs and adjectives, and even with nouns as well. Okay, so this is a really good way to practice your language accuracy and to learn how to think differently and how to give yourself space so that you can find the right words. Okay, so language accuracy is very important for things like interviews, presentations, and if you just want an advanced level of English, it's good to have good language accuracy, and reading and writing poetry can really help you achieve this. Okay. The reason number three why I teach poetry is because obviously there's lots of new vocabulary in poetry for you to learn. And so a lot of my students have said to me, well, Lisa, the vocabulary isn't relevant, or I'm never going to use it, or it's too complex, or it's too old-fashioned. And actually that can be true, but then that also isn't true. Okay, because in some of the poetry that we work with in class, it's very contemporary and there is a lot of very relevant vocabulary that we could be using. Okay, so I think it's not a problem to learn words, even if we might never use them. It's nice to know them, and then we will learn words that we will use when we read and write poetry. Okay. And the last reason I like to teach poetry in my English classes is creativity. So I believe that language and learning language is a very creative process. Language is an art that's constantly changing and evolving. And reading and talking about poetry and possibly writing poetry, it's a really good way to start to think creatively, to start to feel a little bit more creative, and that is a really, really good thing to practice, especially in this world where we mightn't be paid to be creative, or we don't have the opportunity to be as creative as we want. So if you want to practice some creativity, then I definitely suggest reading and writing some poetry in English with me. So on the 26th of September until the 24th of October, I am running a poetry course called My First English Poem, where you will come and read poetry with me and discuss poetry with other online learners from around the world, and we will practice writing a poem. It will be a very creative and very encouraging environment with lots of support, and the idea is that you will work on the assignments by yourself at home and then send me the work, and then I will give you feedback. So this is something you can do in your own time, and you can do it whenever you want during the week. So if you're busy on a Saturday, you can do it on a Sunday, and then I send you feedback on Monday. And it's a really, really good way to practice language accuracy, telling stories, learn new vocabulary, and to be creative. Okay, if you are interested in taking part in the online program My First English Poem, just click the link down below and contact me, and I'll get you signed up. Okay, see you.